Full Circle Conversations.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Full Circle Conversations. Today we have a legend, and I don't say that lightly because he lights up the stages. We're with Andres Ospina. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Andres is the managing director of the Family Office Club, and he's also the co-founder of pitchstacks.com. Welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. So, yeah, absolutely, man. Let's get started here, man. Where are we at right now, right? We're in Medellin, but I want you to take us back. How was your life growing up, in the United States? Because, we're blessed to be able to be here in Colombia. And obviously, for me, still the best country in the world, the United States. So walk me through that, man.
Right now, we are in Medellin, Colombia, in El Poblado, the apartment that I've been living in for the past year and a half. This apartment that I love, dream come true. It's always been my dream to live in Medellin and to have that experience here. So that's for sure. Little did I know that a pandemic was going to make that possible. Yeah. I know you came before the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I came right 2019. So,
2019.
3 months in, it was like, hey, we're locked down, and it was a harsh lockdown.
Yeah. But when you were, how old were you the first time you came to Colombia?
When I came to Colombia, I must have came first time in my life. I mean, I came when I was 19. That was like Bogota, though. Yeah.
Got it.
That was like, I hadn't really been here, because my family's also from Colombia, but I had never visited,
Yep.
Being in Miami, it feels like, you're in South America almost.
For sure. So for me, my first time coming to Colombia, this is my mom's home city. I was 1 year old. Then I came back when I was like 3 and 6 and 8. So I've been coming since a very young age. So I've known my family here a long time. And from a very young age, it was always really hard to leave. Like you come here in the summer, you're not going to school, right? You're just playing with your cousins all the time. You never want to leave. And ever since I was a kid, I knew I want to be able to make USD while living in Colombia. Like that was always like a dream. But I really always thought that wasn't going to happen until I built up like a certain amount of passive income for myself and like built my business in the United States and built it up to a point where I could sell it and like retire and create passive income streams and be sitting on a lot of liquidity.
Right.
But when the pandemic came, we were going into an office every day in Key Biscayne, Miami, right? And I love going into an office. I love being able to collaborate with my team. Patrick Bet David is, doesn't believe in remote work, right? He says you can't build a culture in remote work. Yeah. But after the pandemic, a lot of us kind of went to different places. The founder of Family Office Club went out to Arizona. One of our other directors went out to LA. And my 3-month trip to Medellin became 2.5 years later because we're like, you know what, we're not going to open up offices again. We're going to go for it. We're going to build this remote team and we're going to build this flexibility for ourselves because our company culture has a lot to do with like adventure. Our founder and the co-founder of pitchstacks.com is a big avid outdoorsman. Hiking, likes to travel, wants to experience different places, different cultures, and a remote job setting kind of allows for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
More consistently. So that's how I ended up in Medellin at the age of 32, way sooner than I ever thought I was going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But myself, in regards to answering your question, I grew up in Westchester County and Fairfield County, Connecticut. Grew up in a town called Greenwich, Connecticut for most of my life. Very humble beginnings. My mom cleaned houses. My dad drove limousines and delivered furniture for most of my life. Very grateful for the town that I grew up in. It was a very affluent town that really taught me the difference in like socioeconomic classes.
Yeah.
Because you could really see like, the lower income community, my family, we
blue collar.
Yeah, blue collar, thanks to the government, like food stamps, Section 8 housing, project housing. But at the same time, went to high school with Tommy Hilfiger's son, many top executives from Fortune 500 companies, their children.
Because Greenwich is where all the wealthy people live, right? A lot of those fund managers and all the people who work in New York and all that, they live and they have houses over there, right?
I mean, they made an entire train system to make sure that those people can make it to New York City by train in 45 minutes.
It's probably one of the cities or regions where most wealth is probably concentrated there, you know?
Yeah, 100%. One of the highest GDPs by zip code for sure in the United States. I went to high school with Diana Ross's kids. So a lot of like all the Yankees players' kids
Yeah.
from like the 90s.
This is a public school or a private
It was a
school?
public school.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow,
Greenwich
okay.
High School.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the private schools there didn't even go into high school because Greenwich High was such a good high school that
Right.
they didn't even need private schools.
Yeah.
Like, once people finished homeschooling, they would go to that school. 6,000 people at the time I graduated. So it was a big high school for the size of the town. So once again, very grateful. Taught me a lot about just different socioeconomic classes, good school systems. So even though I didn't go to college, I left high school with a really good education. But
sharp kids, being around,
being around
going over their
sharp teachers, especially. You know what I mean? I think there was like in high school is where I really got to learn, and I'm very grateful for this lesson, that being wealthy does not mean you're happy.
Right.
Like just a lot of wealthy kids where I would have never traded my life with them.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up about happiness, because that's something we're going to get into a little bit later.
And some people don't learn about that until later in their life. Some people need to get wealthy first to learn that lesson, to learn. Like some people need to make their first million to learn that that's not what happiness is. And if anything, it can create more problems, more depression, more trauma in their life, and more bad habits. And a trap. It can, like, wealth can be a trap for a lot of people. And I got to learn that early on in high school because I got to see the consequences of what an adolescent child would become and their attitude towards the world if they didn't have their parents around, because their parents were so worried about, being at work all day, in the city, right? You're commuting to the city. They're not getting back home till 10, 11. You know what I mean? And the single wife's at home with major drug problems, or alcohol problems. It's like my parents, like regardless of maybe the dysfunction there was in my family, there was always a lot of affection, and there was always a lot of love, and there was always a lot of unity. And, for the most part, if I got home from school and my parents weren't home, they were home like by like 6, 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So be able to spend that family time, that quality time in the evening.
Exactly. And a big Latin community there. So we kind of like all really supported each other because, you live in the lower income areas, like the apartments are a little closer together.
Yeah.
My friends that lived in like the big mansions in the middle of the woods, like they can't just like walk down the street to their aunt's house.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had my aunt and my grandma around the corner.
Yeah.
So like
it's so different, from one side of town to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. So I really got that perspective like at a young age, which was great. And it really helped me see that, that money wasn't everything, and I think a lot of things from growing up in a very like religious family, like kept me really focused on God, which is another topic we can get into on spirituality, because that's a big part of my life. But pretty much right after high school, tried college for like a semester. I knew this wasn't for me. I started selling Cutco knives.
Cutco knives?
Yep.
I did that for like 2 weeks, maybe. I was no good, though. I sold like 2 sets of knives, man.
In 2 weeks? That's not bad for 2 weeks.
I just didn't stick with it, man. But
neither did I.
What I loved about those network marketing or MLMs, whatever you want to call it, it's like the education you get. 100%. the self-improvement, like, hey, listen to Jim Rohn and Dale Carnegie and all that. So I appreciate Herbalife too. I did, so nice. those things really help you. So out of high school, you went into...
I will put my child in network marketing before I ever put them in a traditional university. 100%. Unless he has like a very specialized desire to do something that college is like necessary for, like being a surgeon or a lawyer, like where it's like a definite prerequisite. Like I'll put them into sales before I put them into college. And that's the thing, when I did Cutco knives, even though I didn't last long either, I did make my first sale ever. Like my first presentation, like I closed the deal and I made like $150 in like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And like when you're so used to like thinking about like a salary or like working per hour, like when you make $150 in like 30 minutes, you're like, wait a minute, like what is this commission thing?
Yeah.
And like, why did they never teach this to me in school?
Yeah, they're not teaching that for sure.
They never once in high school did they ever talk about like, oh, you can earn a salary, you can make profits, or you can earn a commission. which is like kind of like a mix in between the two, right? You're still in essence working for someone, but now you're getting a piece of the pie, based on like your efforts, and like it's not limited by your 24-hour workday, right? You can multiply, you can leverage things like marketing to expand that. So that's it. Once I got my first commission, I was like, I'm done with college, and just kept trying to go for sales, did network marketing, made my first 6 figures in network marketing. I was one of the youngest top directors for the company I was representing, young at 22, got my BMW, paid for 18 months, got to travel a lot, and got to be around amazing leaders, that really taught me a lot. So that's kind of what led into, and that's what started off my public speaking career, network marketing.
So fast forward, so you go into sales, network marketing, you go through the self-development route, you see there's opportunity. So walk me through how you started with connecting investment firms, with investors, capital partners, those things, because that's basically the world you saw growing up too, right? With the people in Greenwich, because that's what they do.
For sure. And I got to learn a little bit about it in Greenwich, not too much, but through network marketing, building up a large organization of about like 700 sales reps, 700 customers, about 250, 300 sales reps. That's
in network marketing?
In network marketing,
okay.
yeah.
Which one was that?
It's called Your Health.
Your Health?
Called Your Health, okay. YOR Health. Because of it and having a team and stuff like that, then that's when I really started doing public speaking. Right. And that's where we started really my team producing events, and so in order to produce the events we did, like obviously in network marketing, your whole team's not making money. A lot of people aren't making money.
Yeah.
So I learned how to lead a team and have no leverage, because some of them weren't making money, but they were still working and putting on events, and we were putting on great shows, and I was getting up on stage a lot. So that's kind of what started my event production career, network marketing as well, which leads into how I got into this space, into the investment world and helping companies raise capital. So did events in the network marketing space, ended up getting contracted by T. Harv Ecker's old company.
That's a
Millionaire Mind Intensive. That was their main course. Peak Potentials was the name of the company at the time. So I ended up getting recruited by them to help them host their Millionaire Mind Intensives and to sell the packages that they were selling at these shows on stage. Not to sell on stage, I was the sales coordinator. So I would train the team on how to sell the packages. The trainer would obviously pitch the package from stage. Everyone would run to the back, and I would help answer questions, handle objections, and get the credit card.
Get the form filled out.
Get the form filled out.
On that credit card.
Exactly. And that is like where my public speaking training just went to another level, because at that point, I was learning from these top guys that were able to close like $1.5 million, $2.5 million over the course of a weekend from stage. Like I never seen people close from stage like that. I got lucky.
How big were these stages? Yeah, walk me through that. Like, how'd you, because I met you
300 to 500 people usually.
Yeah. I met you at an event, and you were the MC basically, right? You were.
Yeah, this was the event here at Haven, right?
Yeah, Haven. Yeah. So I was impressed, how you can bring a crowd in, and so how'd you start to develop that?
It started in network marketing for sure. It started there, but the level between my network marketing public speaking experience and when I started working for T. Harv Ecker's company, whole different ballgame. Like, network marketing experience was like a level 2. Like, and then it grew to like level 7.5, like, because these guys were closing $2.5 million on stage, and I'm working with them.
So these were like packages of like, $30,000, $40,000.
Yeah, exactly. $20,000 at $30,000. And the thing is that I had public speaking experience. So I was able to ask these trainers the right questions. Like, how are you doing that? Like, tell me about your tonality. How are you starting the event? Everything from like and that's where I learned about MCing, right? Because the MC prepares the energy for the trainer. So I learned so the edification and promotion skills I learned from network marketing, coupled with the public speaking training that I learned from Millionaire Mind Intensive, was a huge difference maker on like when you're on stage, you have to understand logistics, right? You have to understand energy, right? You have to know where your audience is at, because if you're selling from stage, okay, I have to close, within 3 hours, within 4 hours. Where's the energy of the audience at? How are they feeling? Are they with me right now?
Right.
Are they consistently staring at me, or are they looking at their phones the whole time? Are they at the edge of their seats, or are they like leaning back?
Yeah.
Right?
It's
You have to
falling
really,
asleep.
yep, exactly. And then also, you want to give them profound experiences, which means you have to put them through trainings, right? You have to get them into groups of 4. And, you would never think by going to an event, like if you go to conferences, right? And sometimes they split you up into groups of 4, and then they got to give you instructions.
Yeah.
Like splitting up a crowd of 500 people into groups of 4 is more complex than people think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you really got to understand how to break them up into groups, how to make sure they give instructions, make sure they do the exercise, and then afterwards share the experience with themselves, and then share the experience with the audience. And all of that really takes training. Like you really have to understand it. Just because someone maybe goes around the country and does keynote speeches does not mean that they can maneuver an audience of 300 people and get them to get up out of their chairs, get into groups, get uncomfortable with a training exercise that is probably out of their comfort zone and requires them to be vulnerable. So all of those things I really learned through Millionaire Mind Intensive. It was a lot of fun, but I also learned in that space that a lot of people go to events because of the high of events.
Yeah, what they feel there, right? The energy.
Yeah, so a lot of people will spend, and this is like a super controversial to say, but they'll spend $15,000-$20,000 on a course. Go to the course, be pumped up, get motivated, go back home, and do nothing.
No, it's true. I mean, that's like anything, with the gym or with a trainer. I mean, it's like an impulse buy, like an emotion.
It's an emotional buy, right? And, part of me didn't always feel right with that. Part of me didn't always feel right collecting the credit card from someone that I know. I'm like, don't spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on this course. Like, go home and put into paid ads. Right. Go run a campaign. Right. Go launch a product. Go don't spend 4 days here. You know what I mean? But of course, like you're trying to sell at the same time and trying to make your commission. So that was a big realization for me, because I just saw like, come to this course and we'll teach you the secrets to building your business. And then you go to that next course and they're like, okay, but at the end they sell you another course. And they're like, come to this course and now we'll really teach you the secrets. Yeah. And then come to this course, And then there are guys like me and you that do apply that information. Yeah, you see the guys, I have connections. Some of my best friends are people that I've met through these courses, and I've seen their rise because they took that information and they applied it and they used it. But you have seminar junkies that don't. And they're there for the dopamine fix, and anything, they go back home and they crash hard because now they're alone again in their house. And they're like not feeling good until the next event. Yeah. And I even knew what that felt like. I knew what that felt like to work an event and then go back home and like, man, I'm just waiting to get to the next event. Yeah. Because that's when I get to get up on stage and get recognition.
Talk to me about the stage, because you said public speaking, saved your life. Yeah. So I'd love to hear that.
For sure.
What does that mean? Because that's pretty profound.
For sure. Well, the thing about it, it gave me purpose. Yeah. Right. It gave me a lot of purpose, because from the network marketing stages, I got to train people about my sales strategies and how I would close deals. How I would stay motivated, inspired. And the truth is that even though I've definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way because of my ego, and getting that type of recognition so young. It's also meant a lot to have people come up to me and say like, what you said changed my perspective. Like, I'm going to go do things differently now. I still get messages from people or run into people that are like, hey, I knew you from your network marketing days. And like, I went to your event and I saw you speak, and like, you never met me, but I went home and like, I quit my job and I started my business, and now my business is doing this well. Yeah. Or I went home and I started spending more time with my family, and I got more serious at work and I got a promotion, So it was like, okay, like it's like I told you earlier, I already knew money's not everything.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what is there?
And that's
for me?
hard, when you don't have money or when you're coming up, you might be in debt.
Yeah.
It's like all you're thinking about is money, but then when you actually get the money, that's when you realize, like, it's so cliche, but it's so true at the same time.
Yeah. And my transitions, like from network marketing to working at peak potentials, weren't always that clean. They were sometimes involved, they were just rough, a lot of breaks in between where I wasn't making money. But I knew like I had this talent
Right.
to like work a stage, to do an event, to bring people together.
Do you ever
Right?
get nervous, man? Because 500 people is a good amount of people, man. Like, or did you just have that in you? Like, hey,
No,
man, I'm cool, man.
I think if you're not nervous before you get up on stage, you don't care enough.
Yeah.
Honestly. But I have like my exercises.
Yeah,
Like shaking my face, man, smacking myself, just like pumping myself up. So those
And
things have
you
always
start to
helped.
build it up, it starts to become more natural.
Yeah, exactly. And you understand, like, look, you get up on stage, if you're extra nervous, maybe you just got in a fight with your girlfriend, or you got some bad news, or day's not always perfect, right? When you go up on stage, maybe you're not 100%, but once you get up there, like maybe you start off a little rough, but then you get some momentum and now you're flowing.
So what are some like key tips, if you could give 2, 3
for public speaking?
Yeah, for public speaking, man, because I feel like a lot of people, like I'll get in a group of like 20 people, and it's like, man, because part of the masterminds that I'm at, like, you have to present.
Yep.
So I like that mastermind I'm in. It's called Collective Genius, because you have to do a presentation. Like,
Yep.
And then they vote, hey, who did the best presentation?
Yep.
So you get over it. It's not, the people in there, and 500 people, that's a lot. But what could you share?
Yep, for sure. For sure. There's a lot of tips, and a lot of it, is a lot about body language when you're on stage. One of the things that I would say is plant your feet, especially if you're just starting off public speaking. Really try to practice planting your feet and having, like, there's 2 nails right through your feet. Because a lot of people will fidget, and
so you don't recommend moving around the stage? No, just stay
not
there.
too. Yes, that plant your feet. When you move, do it very intentionally. So I'll move from the left side of the stage, plant my feet, talk, plant, and then walk over, plant my feet, stand there for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, right? And then maybe walk over, versus constant pacing,
Right.
Because then people will see, like, you're just like a pendulum. You'll see people's heads in the audience just like go like that. So you really want to plant your feet. But when if you're on the left-hand side of a big audience, let's say 300 people, right? What a lot of speakers do that's a mistake is that if I'm on the left-hand side and I'm talking to them like this, then now I'm giving almost my back to the whole right side of my audience.
Right.
So what I want to do is I actually want to, if I'm on the left hand of the stage, I want to face right. Because now if I'm on the left hand of the stage and I'm facing right, I still have everybody's view in front of me, right? And I'm not giving anyone my back. That's a big one, man. Because the second you give your back to an audience, it's hard to gain the back, man. Because now you're probably going to do it throughout the whole presentation. And now you're disconnecting with half the audience for half the time. Because you're on the left hand of the stage and you're just focused on this side, and everybody here you're not even making eye contact with.
Yeah.
And they feel it. They just sense it and they'll disconnect. And that's a bad one, on a big audience, when you're talking to a big audience. So you're on the left hand, face the right.
Body language,
Yeah. And if you're on the right hand of the stage, face left. And now you pretty much have a whole panoramic view of your whole audience.
Right.
So that's a big one. If it's a big audience, you want to have an MC, to help hype up the crowd, to edify you and speak you up before you get up there. Ask everybody how they're doing. Make sure everybody gives you a round of applause, right? If you're ever getting up on stage and everybody's giving a round of applause, right? Everybody welcome up, Andres Olaya, right? And everybody's giving a round of applause. You get up there, thank them.
Right.
Make sure to say thank you. They're giving you a round of applause, say thank you. Don't just stand there and just like, like, I deserve this. It's like when you ask the audience to do something, like raise their hand, Like, hey, raise your hand if you're from New York City.
Right.
And like 25% of the audience raises their hand. Thank them. Thank them for participating.
Right.
Right? That's a big
Include
one.
them, involve,
Yep.
engage with them.
Yep. And you see a lot of great speakers on stage, comedians even, singers, artists. You'll notice they say thank you a lot. You'll notice a lot of great speakers say thank you. Politicians, especially right now during the debates, you'll notice when the audience claps for them, raises their hand, cheers, anything, you'll hear them say thank you.
Right.
You know, it's a very, like, unless you like really pay attention for it, you won't even notice it. But now that I say it, maybe you'll start paying attention to them. Where, oh, wow, they do say that, right? Because it's, once again, you're acknowledging the audience for their participation. You want them to participate. You want them to stay engaged with you. So making sure to thank them. Having a good MC is always powerful because it helps you with transitions as well. And you know, about facing the audience, that's a big one. And then also, for eye contact, a lot of people ask me like, hey, how about like eye contact and looking at the audience? How does that work?
Right.
And what I'll do, I'll move an S. So I'll start eye contact, like let's say all the way in the back right-hand side, and like move my eyes kind of like an S, like down. That's usually what I'll do with eye contact. You know,
so
and sometimes
feel like you're actually engaging with them, looking at.
Yeah, exactly. Because once again, it's not only your body from the neck down that's not disengaged. Your eyes could be disengaged with the whole part of the audience. You could be just talking to the people in the first 5 rows and not looking behind those rows at all, disconnecting with that audience as well. So that's very powerful. And other than that, getting some good training. I did a lot of Toastmasters. I still beat myself up for my non-words.
Right.
My uhs, my you knows. My big one's you know. Yeah. My big one can be you know.
Did you have a mentor, you know, when you were getting into this, like a specific mentor, or was it, you know, that group that really guided you, or like
a lot? I definitely had a lot of help, but like I worked with Millionaire Mind Intensive for like almost 4 years. Mm-hmm. Best trainers in the world. They're the best trainers in the world. They're the best public speakers in the world. Because they train politicians. I mean, these guys, they do their events, but then they outside work, man, they're training keynote speakers. They're training politicians.
That's like another part of their business.
They're training top executives. Yeah. So like, and these are the guys that I got to work with. I got paid for working with these guys and helping sell and close deals together, you know? So man, like that was a big difference maker. And, you know, that's what really taught me, like the event at Haven, you know what I mean? You got to challenge the audience sometimes. If they're not participating with you, man, you call them out, right? Someone's talking while you're on the mic, like, hey, you, that guy talking. Yeah. You know, I'm going to need you to stop. Thank you. Appreciate it, right?
That was good because you did it in English and Spanish.
Yeah.
That's like a walk in the park for you, man. You were just hanging out, man.
Yeah, and you learn a lot from like different things. Like stand-up comedy has taught me a lot about how to handle a heckler, how to handle someone in the audience that maybe is having a side conversation while you're on stage. Right. You know, and how to have fun with that and how to crack jokes as well. Stand-up comedy can teach you a lot about public speaking. Yeah. Like just normal, you know, a lot of people, if you're a corporate executive and you have a team of 100 people to talk to at a corporate conference, you know, you may not think to watch a little stand-up comedy and see what jokes you can take from there and watch their body language. You may not think that, but you could learn so much from a good stand-up comedian on how they talk to people, how they move their hands.
No, and they admit that emotion too, so that's part of it. You know, laughter's joy and one of the strongest emotions.
But to just finalize on your question on how it saved my life, man, the mic is a powerful tool, man. Yeah. And it gives me purpose. It's allowed me to teach a lot of people about public speaking too. So to help them become better communicators. And you're studying communication. So it's also made me a better communicator, you know, which has made me more emotionally intelligent. So in that way too, you know, it's been a big life changer for me.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what life is, right? Communicating.
Yep.
You know, that's a big part of it. So
huge. Everything is like communication.
So tell me about the family office, you know, and the mission you guys have over there, you know, because I see you guys, you know, have events and, you know, deal flow and capital and family offices. So tell me more about that, you know, because that's a
For sure. So basically, I was living in Miami. The Millionaire Mind Intensive had a change in ownership and they got sold. So we weren't that year. We weren't doing too many events. Not enough events for me to like support myself, honestly. So I started pretty much looking for other work. I started doing real estate wholesaling. I sold 6 houses in Florida. Did some wholesale deals in Florida. But I wanted to get back into events and conferences. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to get back into events and conferences. Events and conferences have allowed me to travel the world, for and make money while doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Versus like I've been to Singapore and Europe multiple times to do conferences and events. But instead of me going out there and just spending money, I'm out there working, making connections. It's traveling with intention. Traveling with like purpose, right? Get to really understand when you do an event. I did an event in London with like 150 people. You get to, in that one day, really understand the culture because you're in like one room with 150 people. Just traveling around, going to restaurants and stuff, you don't get that same experience. So I knew I wanted to go back into doing conferences and events. At the time, I didn't know what a family office was, though, actually. Right. But I had been testing out working with this company from England called GDS. I was not happy there. Don't want to talk smack, but the culture wasn't for me. I'll just put it that way. But one of my friends' friends worked for Family Office Club. She still works for Family Office Club, Jennifer. And we had been out in Miami partying for a friend's birthday. I had told Jennifer I'd overheard that I wasn't really happy at where I was working. And she was working at Family Office Club. And she said, hey, like, look, I know you know events. I know you know sales. We're looking for a director to help us sell our memberships. We do events multiple times a year. Come check it out. At the same time, coincidentally, I got a LinkedIn message from the founder, from Richard Wilson, asking if I wanted to come in and interview. And I was like on a trip in Jacksonville with a friend, and I was like, Family Office Club. And I was like, what is this? Like doctor's offices? Like, what is it? But I was telling my friend who's very familiar with finance, he's like, oh no, a family office is a wealthy family. And they're very private, they're very discreet. And a family office is pretty much how a wealthy family creates their holdings and their trust and their investment portfolio for their family. It's almost like a private bank just for that family. I didn't know the concept at the time. But he was like, you better go interview, because if it's a club of family offices, it sounds like a big opportunity to be around a lot of wealthy people. So I went and interviewed. The founder right away, Richard Wilson, really caught my attention. Till this day, he's one of the entrepreneurs of highest integrity that I've ever had the opportunity to work with in my life and to be mentored by. And he's a father of 3. He has 7 different businesses. He's in his early 40s. So I've been with the company now for almost 8 years. So met him in his early 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. And he has the respect of many billionaires and centimillionaires all around the world. They really listen to everything he has to say. So the man has massive amounts of influence, works multiple businesses, a family man, doesn't drink or do anything like that, works out religiously. Like, the man's discipline is rare. At a whole nother level, top 0.001% of disciplined men, for sure. So I knew I wanted to work with the guy. So we interviewed. We saw that there was definitely a good synergy there. He's more of an introverted type of entrepreneur. I'm more of an extroverted entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. Be out in front.
Yeah. And I like to network. I like to get to know people, right? I like to just have conversations and have a lot of friends. It's the Latino in me.
Right. Paisa.
Yeah, the Paisa in me, just highly extroverted. So that's pretty much how I got into the space. I got into the space helping sell memberships. I was pretty much a sales rep that helped moderate panels and MC events when I got started, right? Because I had the event experience. No one else in the office was really excited to get up on stage or the
Yeah.
microphone, you know?
Not many people are, man. I
Not
mean,
many people are.
it's a rare talent, you know,
Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know how rare it is because working in personal development, you see so many people that want to be on the mic, you know, and
Yeah.
so many people that want to train. But then, like, when you step out of the space, you realize a lot of people are like, oh, I would never do that,
Right.
you know? But so I started with Family Office Club selling memberships as a sales rep, but during events, I would MC and I would moderate panels, which I loved,
Yeah.
which I fell in love with, you know, being able to interview top investors from around the country and just be on stage and
Right.
just learn from them.
Yeah.
And I get to be the one to just ask them whatever questions I want to ask them from stage. So that was also really great. And it gave me the opportunity to get in front of a lot of these fund managers, real estate professionals, venture capital firms. And it was the space I needed to be in because, like I had mentioned earlier, and just being very honest and frank, is that being on stage so many years during my 20s, like your ego kind of like, you're young, you're 20s, you're getting this recognition, you're on stage, you get off stage, people want to talk to you. It could be an unhealthy ego boost, you know? But being able to like be in the space that was like 95% male driven, you know, and they're not very easily impressed, you know, was a very humbling experience as well, which was great. And like for a young guy in his late 20s in Miami, like you want to be in a situation that's a little bit more challenging, you know, than like these very hypey situations with like, you know, people that are just trying to get out of their jobs and get into digital marketing,
Yeah.
you know. I got into the space 7 years later, 7.5 years later. I'm the managing director now for the company. We took the team from 8 people to about 40 now.
Amazing.
We're about a 40-person team. We launched a media agency, pitchdex.com, about 3 years ago, where
What do you guys do there?
we create content for investment firms.
Oh, okay.
So instead of going to like a marketing agency that does the marketing for the local restaurant or the local hotel or the local realtor,
Yeah.
you know, they don't know about capital raising and creating pitch decks and how to really raise large amounts of capital. A real estate investment firm or a venture capital firm or a hedge fund manager is way better off coming to us.
Right.
That has more specialized knowledge, and they can also leverage our events.
Yeah, specialize in that niche.
In capital raising. Plus we have the events and the conferences where they can leverage that too, you know, and all of our media assets that they can leverage and get exposure through. So we saw a big opportunity to launch a media agency. A lot of our members wanted us to do it and wanted us to create the content for them. Right. You know, instead of them building out a marketing team, they could use our marketing team. So launched that, did 7 figures for the first time in 2022 with the agency. And it's been great. It's been a huge asset for our members, but also for us too, because it forced us to grow our marketing team. Yeah. And it forced us to get much better at managing many projects at once. So that's pretty much where we're at now.
Like something that, you guys were able to integrate right in seamlessly, right? With like what your clients already needed.
Yeah, because there was a demand.
Yeah.
Because we already had 700 members that were consistently coming to our events. Our events are pretty much members only.
Yeah. Tell me about that, you know, the membership. I was, you know, on the website looking into that. Like what are the events, you know, because you guys got several events, you know, you said like it's a club, right?
So another big differentiator with us and a lot of other conference groups out there and people that host conferences, you know, and people I'm shouting out, I love to death and have taught me everything, but, you know, Grant Cardone, Patrick Brett David, there's like a Hunter Thompson, a lot of guys out there doing events. There's a lot of events right now, probably more events than pre-pandemic, but a lot of them sell event tickets. That's what they do. They sell event tickets and packages per event. We don't do that really. What we do is we focus on getting members, because we don't want people to think like, come to this one event and try to shove your pitch deck in front of everybody as fast as possible and see how much capital you raise at this event. It's like, no, join a community. Focus on developing relationships. Don't focus on, how much capital can I raise on this one event? Focus on How many relationships can I develop at this event? How much value can I deliver to this community so this community reciprocates and gives value back? Right? That's the way that we really see it. So by becoming a member of the club, instead of just purchasing a ticket and like coming to one event, you're really having more of a midterm and long-term strategy. I'm going to come to this event. I'm going to come to this mastermind because we do masterminds as well. I'm going to come to this mastermind. I'm going to build relationship. I'm going to provide value. And then at the next event, those people from the previous event are going to help create introductions and connections for you. They're going to want to help you because you're part of that same community. So we really focus on like that member mindset, on like really being a club in order to do that. On developing relationships and learning what that means. You can be an amazing salesperson. You can be an incredible hedge fund manager. You can be incredible at managing a real estate portfolio.
Right.
You know, I talk to a lot of real estate professionals. They're like, oh, I manage 1,400 units of multifamily real estate. I manage 2,500 units of multifamily real estate. And they think that just because of that an investor should invest with them and give them money. But unfortunately, they're not the only person that has over 2,000 doors.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people. So that's not enough.
Right.
You have to learn how to really develop relationships, especially in an economy right now where real estate is taking a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to learn how to be patient, develop those relationships so those people want to reciprocate back and not just think, oh, well, I did 20% returns for the past 3 years, so people should just instinctively and logically give me money.
Right.
Like investors have 50 emails a day from people that are doing those type of returns.
So it's two types of people at the event. So wealthy family offices and then people looking for capital, right? So how do you, that's one of the questions, right? How do you begin to build those relationships with some of the most wealthy and powerful family offices in the world, right? Because you have people from all over the world.
All over the world, but we're primarily U.S. based.
U.S., okay.
Primarily U.S. based. So we have family offices, established family offices, but we also have, for example, entrepreneurs that just sold their company for 80 million, 150 million, had a big exit. So now they're going from the world of entrepreneurship to the I quadrant, right? In Robert Kiyosaki, right? You have the I quadrant. And people, sometimes what an entrepreneur, a successful one especially, may not understand is that just because they were a great entrepreneur and business owner does not make them a great investor.
Absolutely.
Right? It's different. Or you have the family that just sold, you know, a massive amount of agriculture. Like they just sold their vineyard that they've had for 5 generations, right? So they just sold their vineyard. Or you have 5th generation surgeons that now they're like the whole family, like the grandfather's a surgeon and the sons became children. The grandchildren are now surgeons. So the whole family's making a lot of money. So now they want to bring their money together into a family holdings and create their own family office. So we have family offices, and then we also have individuals that want to start creating and formalizing their family office. And once they're thinking, okay, I have this wealth now, how do I transfer it over? How do I invest smart? And how do I become a good investor? How do I learn due diligence? How do I learn how to structure a deal, right? Should I provide this founder or this opportunity with debt? Or should I ask for equity? How much control should I ask for, right? What's my exit strategy?
A lot of key things to know.
And you see, a lot of key things to know. And you saw it a lot during the crypto and the cannabis boom where people made poor choices on where they invested their money because they got bought into the hype, right? And so for some people, it's detrimental, right? In a lot of ways. So, you know, you could be doing business with just someone you should not be doing business with. So to answer your question about how we build those relationships, we build those relationships by making them aware of that problem and delivering free value. How do you build relationship with an ultra wealthy individual? You don't ask them for anything. That includes their time. Don't ask them for their time. That's what people do. You meet a wealthy individual, you know, someone super wealthy, and now you're like, oh my God, this person would be a great investor. You know, maybe you did have a connection with them. Maybe you guys had a great conversation. But you're like, oh my God, this person would be a great investor. Hey, when can we sit down for coffee? I want to show you my business. Hey, I want to show you this crypto project that I'm doing. Hey, I want to show you my real estate project. Don't ask them for your time. Because immediately they already know, like, oh, you're trying to ask me for something.
So you should give them value. Start with
Just give them value, man. Make it like over the past 7 years of me working with Family Office Club, I've gotten to the point of building these relationships that where now they're coming to me going, show me something.
Right.
Offer me something. To our investors, they're wonder like, why don't you ever offer me something? You're just like my friend. And you just like give me great insights and great tips and like great perspective. Because I've been able to work with so many industries now that I hear so many like horror stories and I learn so many lessons from others that now I share those same lessons and those same stories with the investors in our community. So we build connection there because they're like, ooh, Andres is valuable. Whenever I'm around him, he shares really great insight, or he's very deep and profound, and we get into spiritual discussions or about family life, or our maybe like what I'll ask for is like advice. Like, how is it to be a father, because I want to be a father one day, or how do you manage your marriage?
Right.
And more profound conversations, right?
What are some of those things? Yeah, what are some of those things, being around some of the wealthiest people? Yeah, what have you learned, right? Being around some of the wealthiest people, we talked about Richard, right? How you really admire him. I mean, those are all great qualities, great values. But what about these other families? What about these other high performers, call it that? Yep. What have you learned, being around all these people?
Man, so much. Honestly, I've had the privilege of sitting down and having lunch with a billionaire in the steel industry and really talking about his personal life and his challenges.
Yeah.
And it really depends on how that person obtained their wealth.
Right.
Inherited wealth is a whole different vibe and energy than earned wealth. Right? And earning your wealth at a young age is very different than earning your wealth in your in your 40s, But you see the patterns for sure. You see the patterns. There are, for example, I will meet people that earn their wealth in their 20s. Maybe they did a great flip, right? Maybe it was a crypto boom. Maybe they became very great salespeople and they worked 90-hour weeks and had a $2 million commission that year.
Right.
And a lot of them can fall into the trap of drugs and alcohol and partying, for example.
Yeah.
You see that a lot.
Yeah.
And you can see addiction kind of rear its ugly head. And you can see people get taken advantage of. You hear about these guys in Miami.
Absolutely.
Guys in Miami getting roofied and getting their luxury watches stolen.
Yeah, man.
Because they're not careful. They're not thinking about these things. They're letting the admiration get to their head and they let their guard down.
Yeah.
Right. And they're also not saving money. They're not saving money. They're not investing it. Maybe in a little bit of crypto and stock market here and some ETFs and some commodities. But man, you're 22. You made $2 million. Doing it right, you could retire yourself like in the next 3 years if you use those $2 million wisely. Absolutely. Or if you make another make $2 million 3 years back to back, right? 2 million, 2 million, 2 million. Save. Don't spend it on sports cars and luxury apartments and liabilities. In those 3 years, you could set yourself up for the rest of your life. But I've seen guys that will make 2 million, 2 million, 2 million. And at the end of those 3 years, they have to keep working. They don't have a choice, They have to keep that pace, keep that crazy pace up, Same with like doctors, right? Like, a surgeon working crazy hours and the hours he's not working, he's just spending his money, right? So that's kind of what I see. And it's great because of what I've learned, I've been able to talk to a lot of younger, wealthier people and share these things with them and have them like reflect it back to them because their group of friends isn't telling them this stuff. They're just having fun that their friend is like paying for everything.
You have a different perspective because you've seen so many different kinds of entrepreneurs, right? How they made their wealth and how they preserved it.
Yeah. So sharing value with people that are younger in their wealth, sharing value in terms of like family values with people that maybe inherited their wealth, and family maybe sometimes is maybe they just weren't that connected with their family, or maybe they hold a lot of resentment for their family, because like maybe they inherited all this wealth, but their family wasn't really there for them. they don't understand affection. You know, Latinos, we really understand affection,
Yeah.
and hugs, and telling people you love them. You know, but you'll meet some people that will tell you, like, my father never told me he loves me.
Right.
Right, and it's like, okay, like, let's work that through, you know, and it almost becomes like a therapy session. And that's been like really cool because, like I said, it's really cool to have someone that you admire for their business accolades and their wealth kind of turn around and really admire you for your ability to be vulnerable, have deep conversations, you know, discuss topics that like really matter that some people think are like boring or heavy, you know, and like, it's like, oh, like, lighten the mood. People don't want to talk about that. But it's like, people do want to talk about that. People want to be able to share, you know, their experiences and their challenges.
Yeah, at that stage, you want to give back, you know? It's like you have everything you could ever need, right?
Yep. And financially, right? Yeah. But then, for example, when I had lunch with a billionaire one time, what was his biggest challenge? What was his biggest concern? That he's in his late 40s and he hasn't found love. And dating and the challenges of dating when you're that wealthy. Yeah. You know, and you just want to find someone you can trust.
Yeah, man.
Right? Find someone you can trust, someone that loves you for who you are, not just for your money. And having that conversation about that. And it was a very interesting conversation because I remember that his perspective was that he feels that women were just simply intimidated by him. Right? So it's very interesting because that was his perspective. And I challenged him on that because I said, could they be intimidated, or do you simply just spend most of your time just talking about yourself?
Right.
Trying to impress this person. You know, and you're doing it trying to impress this person. A lot of people that either inherited wealth, or sometimes even I've met men that have built their own wealth. They're not used to like admiration, so they think that the best way to do is to talk about their success and talk about what they did and talk about how much their company just produced and how many people they just hired, which is like, sounds humble because you're like, oh, you're creating jobs,
right?
You know, but at the same time, you're kind of bragging too, depending on your tonality and how it comes off, right? And like all the places you traveled, right? And that's all you're talking about, and it's just talking. Then sometimes you're like, oh, that person's intimidated by me. I'm like, but did you take time to ask them about them? Right. Did you ask them questions? Did you ask them questions and open your ears to their life and their background and who they are, and maybe not talk about so much about yourself, but talk about things like philosophy and God and just, or maybe just deeper crack things, some jokes, you know? Or was it really spent like, oh, does this person think I'm cool? Check out my private jet, check out my sports car. And now it's just about that, you know, or let's go to the club and, you know, I'll get bottles, or let's go to the fanciest restaurant, 5-star Michelin star restaurant, and get, you know, the best experience. And it's just like, right. You hear about it a lot now. It's like, what's the number one mistake you can do taking a girl out on a first date? Is taking her out to a fancy restaurant. Right. It's the worst mistake you can do, because you're showing her like, I'm going to trade your time for money. Like, that's the value. I'm going to spend a bunch of money. I don't even know you. It's like, well, why does that person deserve such a show? Yeah. Like, shouldn't you get to know him? Go have some ice cream, man. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You could be worth $100 million. Or a bakery. Or first date. Coffee or whatever. Exactly. Yeah. Go get some ice cream, man. Yeah. It's like, oh, but you're a super millionaire. Like, what do you mean just ice cream? It's like, yeah, because I want you to go on this date to get to know me, not to experience my money. Right? And you see that, like, these are the conversations I'm having with a lot of like these powerful people, and it's very interesting. I think that for the millionaires, well, and especially like, I want to say, let's talk about like the centimillionaires, you know, like 100 million and up. I think most of the time when I'm talking to ones that are like married or family men, I'm spending a lot of time learning from them. Right. Yeah, it's valuable information. You know, like what it's like what is fatherhood like? You know, how do you manage your business and your family? Like, so a lot of times I'm asking them questions. Yeah. You know, and we're really talking a lot of times about faith, you know, and the future and raising children and how to look at the world we're in today. Yeah. With like the future of AI, like, and the kind of the anxiousness and the nervousness that can come with like this changing world. and deciding to live in other places. So the conversations change, and they really do. I see the pattern on how there are different conversations and also recognizable patterns depending on the type of wealth I'm talking to.
Yeah, different conversations for different people from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about I want to talk briefly on that we're talking about God and spirituality, because the way I see it, what's so amazing about God and the Bible is that even though it was so many years ago, I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
how many years, everything they talk about in the Bible, you still see it today.
Yeah, 100%.
So where do you see your relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
the relationship some of these wealthy families have with God? Talk to me about that and the spirituality aspect of it too, man, because I
For
think it's
sure.
so important and it's so overlooked nowadays that it's like, wow.
I love this topic, and I really made a commitment this year that I'm going to talk about it more, even if it ruffles feathers.
Yeah.
Um, even if it ruffles feathers. For me, my journey with religion is interesting. I was baptized Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
right? I did my first communion, super Catholic. When I was 16, I always loved history, and I started studying the history of the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church, and it devastated me. Like the history of the church, and around that
Right.
time, there was also crazy things going on in Boston,
Yeah.
right? About the Vatican
That's the
hiding
smallest
certain
country
things.
in the world, right? The Vatican.
Yep.
You've been there? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Me too.
Yeah, Rome is beautiful. But when I was 16, learning about the history
Mm-hmm.
of the Spanish Inquisition and just really thinking like all the wars that have been fought due to Christianity and Catholicism, I became an atheist. I was like, there's no God. Like if the most powerful religion in the world, like, and remember, Italy,
Right.
was on the axis of power. They were sided with Hitler,
Right.
And that's not, I'm not trashing on Catholicism. I love Catholicism. I live in Medellin. I go to churches all the time. I now consider myself a believer of all religions.
Okay, I love that.
But I went
That's
from
an interesting
atheist
concept, yeah.
at that time because I was like, how is the most powerful religion on earth? They were sided with Germany, they
Right.
were the Italians, right? Mussolini and Hitler were a team. And the Vatican really, historically stole a lot of wealth from the world. Not to trash, right? But it may ruffle some feathers, but it made me an atheist. It made me
Right.
stop believing in God. And what made me a believer again was this book on really about physics and like
Okay.
human performance and the human spirit. I even forgot
What
the
book
name
is
of
that?
the,
Yeah.
I forgot the name of
That's
the book.
interesting,
Yeah.
because that's what made you from atheist to a believer again.
Yeah.
I have to know that book. So
Man, and I wish I
Yeah,
know, man. I
yeah.
think about it all the time. It was a gift from my cousin, from a cousin. We're the same age, but I saw the book because it was about like unlocking the human mind, and, like
Okay.
your human potential.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a cool book. And he was like, oh yeah, you can't take it. I'm reading it. And then he gave it to me as a gift.
Okay.
Like the next time, like a month later. And I remember that I opened up to the first pages and it told me to look at my hand. I was like, look at your hand and understand that your hand is made of cells and molecules and atoms. And those atoms that your hand is made out of have been around for billions of years. And like that blew my mind. I don't know what it was about that.
That phrase.
But the fact that like my body and everything it's made out of literally came out of a star. Like literally. Like this atoms from this hand were inside of a star.
Yeah.
And it made me believe in miracles. And it made me believe in purpose and meaning. Like this life has to mean something. Because when you become an atheist, you lose really like what's the meaning of life? Like you're an atheist, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in anything. You just kind of like believe in like science. And science is so limited, but you think science is like the max of all knowledge. You're like, yeah, we're just here because we're just like a soup of chemicals and it just happened and it's just evolution and monkeys that turn into humans and now we can talk. And it's like, there's no purpose to this, right? You talk to most aliens, there's no purpose. You just live your life and then you die. Like there's no grander, bigger thing. But when I really realized like everything we're made out of, like this meat suit, the bones came from stars, it just like awakened something in me. And you know what's crazy? That how many people, when I share that with tell me they've had the same exact experience. How many people I've talked to, especially now that the conversation seems to be, there's like a grand awakening. How many people now have shared almost that same story with me? It blows my mind because this was like 20 years ago. And like in the past couple of years, how many people I've had tell me that they became believers when they realized that everything they were made out of came out of a star. And everything around us was once packed into a star. And what that means. So that's kind of how it started.
From outer space, like a star from
stars.
Yeah.
Stars.
Yeah,
We came
stars.
from stars, stardust.
Yeah.
We are literally stardust. Everything, and that includes our consciousness. That
Right.
includes our spirit. From there, when I got into network marketing, the founder of the company was a huge believer in astrology. In like Western and in Eastern astrology, but in Chinese and also in Vedic astrology.
Yeah.
So I started getting, and like, because I became one of the top leaders in the company, I got to go to a lot of the top leadership retreats and the private leadership meetings.
Yeah.
And he would literally read our astrological signs. He would read our numerology. He would bring his Vedic astrologer to do readings for all of us. So it got me into studying more.
It's pretty deep, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that when we talk about astrology, we're talking about the origins of religion, right? If you think about it, like the wise men followed a star to get to Jesus, to find Jesus. Astrology is all over the Bible, right? And so is Buddhism and Hinduism, right? Like Reiki, Jesus used Reiki, and it's now kind of being proven that there's a possibility, also highly controversial, but that Jesus studied with Buddhists and the Hindus, right? And learned a lot and brought that back to Israel and taught that to a primarily Jewish community. And that's what created a lot of friction, because he was teaching a lot of these Hindu practices and Buddhist practices to Jewish people, right? And creating a lot of conflict there. So the thing about it is that while I do love Christianity, and Jesus is like the prophet that I most connect with, because it's like the one that I always used to pray to as a child.
Right.
I see now that like he really most likely got knowledge from older religions. And while the Bible has a lot of stories that connect with us today, that's the whole point of the Bible. The Bible is meant to give you lessons on all of life's challenges, because the challenges we go through in life are not that different.
They're not.
We're all gonna go through the same challenges.
It is, man.
Finding love, making money, picking which best business to do, picking the right friends, obtaining the right habits, fighting urges and temptation that are not in our best interest.
It's all there. It's all there where you see it today. That's what's so amazing.
It's all there. But the crazy thing about it is that it's also all in the Quran. It's all in it's all in the Quran. It's all in the Torah. It's all in the I forgot the book of the Hindu book. But it's all in all religious texts. They pretty much talk a lot about the same stories, right? Like Jesus is not the first prophet in religious texts to have been born from a virgin mother, for example. Like the stories kind of do repeat themselves, and what we're realizing is that the story of Jesus is 2,000 years old, right? But we're finding out that human history is easily, definitely 100,000 years old, could be 500,000 years old, could even be 1,000,000 years old. And the story of Christianity is only 2,000 years old. So there's a bunch of human history and spiritual text that is just underground or was probably burned by other cultures that like we don't have access to yet. Right. But what we'll see when we uncover, right, Christianity is a religion that's been around for, I think, 1,000 years, maybe a little more, 1,500. Judaism, 3,000, 4,000 maybe. Buddhism, like 5,000. That's a very small fraction of human history. I think that when we start to uncover religions from 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 years ago, what we're going to see is that is very similar to the religions of today.
Yeah.
It's just the same stories kind of repeating themselves over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But the Bible, when you read the Bible,
You take time to educate yourself, then be connected with God, read the Bible.
yeah. I do. I've also like in the past like 10 years have really connected more to like my indigenous roots as well. So I do like to do indigenous ceremonies like temescales, like sweat lodges, like Native American
Right.
ceremonies, and learn about their history and their beliefs as well, because they have a lot of stories as well that can connect with the challenges that you go through today. And also because I feel like my bloodline is indigenous, right? Just based on like kind of my complexion and everything. That I want to connect to my ancestors and like their stories and stuff like that. So I like to read up and study on all religions. Right now, the book I'm reading during 75 Hard is called The Power of Kabbalah. So I'm studying Kabbalah right now,
What's that?
Kabbalah is a religious practice that was created by Abraham, the prophet.
Okay.
The Jewish prophet, but he created kind of like his own, I guess, religious practice in a sense, that is based around around yoga. Yoga has a lot of like Kabbalistic practices, so that's what I'm like reading right now. But I'm just super interested and curious. I found evangelical Christianity when I was like 19. So in Miami, there's a very popular one called like VU Church, for example. I love that because growing up Catholic, like church is kind of like very monotone. So you're like, like with the organs. You go to Christian church, they got a rock band.
Yeah.
They got a rock band or a guitar. I'm like, this is awesome. Like a rock band. Like this is super cool way to praise Jesus, So, so definitely still study up on my Christianity, and the Bible, and I have two of my siblings are super Christian, so I love having conversations with them about Christianity. My brother, he's what you consider Judeo-Christian, so he practices both like Jewish practices and Christian practices, and he actually used to help his church translate all of their sermons from English to Spanish.
It's amazing.
So I love having conversations with them about God, and because everybody has their own perspective.
Yeah,
everybody has their own belief, right? So, and one of the biggest problems with the world right now is that we think that just because someone has a different religious perspective than us, that they're against us, and that they don't align with us. Right? Most Christians don't know that Jesus shows up in the Quran like over 100 times. So most Christians have no idea that Muslims believe in Jesus.
Right.
They just believe in him differently, right? They have a different context around him, but they do see him as a prophet, and as someone that brought the word of God. They just have, there's a big difference we won't talk about here. But at the end of the day, most Christians don't even know that Muslims believe in Jesus. Yeah. They have no idea that Jesus is in the Quran.
Exactly.
Over like 100 times, something like that, right? Like they have no idea. Like no way. They will literally. You tell most Christians, they're like no way. Well, yeah, and it's like right there. It's like you thought they were so different from you, and you had no idea that there's actually a lot in common in what you believe. If we had more of that, if more people understood what we had in common versus what our differences were, man, how different would our world be right now?
I love that. More people understood what we had in common
than what our differences were.
Yeah.
Our world would be in a whole different place right now. Whole different place.
I love that, man. No, thank you for sharing. God, I think, we need him now more than ever. That's the way I see it, because what we see nowadays is just incredible. Some of the things that if we had God more present in our society and we'd be more aware of all these things, it'd be completely different. So
God is so infinite and so big, and so eternal, and if you really learn how to connect with him, you really see like how small your problems are.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of the problems we're facing today is that we think our problems are so big.
Right.
Our fights with our spouses, our fights with our children, our problem at work. Like we're in them and we're like, oh my God, like my world is crashing down on me. But if you have something bigger to believe in than just yourself and your world and your finances and just your family, and something bigger, and more faith
Right.
in that higher power, man, your problems become like that.
Yeah.
And getting through life becomes so much easier. And there's less reason to fight, and there's less reason to judge others.
Yeah.
Less reason to judge, less reason to argue. There's just less reasons when you really see life and your soul as being so expansive and eternal and miraculous.
Absolutely. What have been some of those biggest challenges? You being managing director, family office club. Your career in public speaking. What have been some of those challenges along the way that you had to face?
Yeah, for sure. I know that one of the things I'm most grateful for is that I have both my parents right now, and
Yeah.
they're relatively in really good health. Almost lost my mother about 10 years ago, and that was like a pretty big challenge for me. But right now, I know a lot of people struggle with their parents' health, and very grateful that's not currently my challenge. It could be one day, but once again, a lot of love for anybody that's challenging with the parent that's in poor health right now, because that's one of a big challenge that can affect a lot of different areas of your life.
Right. Yeah. That's what you got your focus on.
Yeah.
When something like that happens, you can imagine.
For me, I would say that really, honestly, some of my biggest challenges have just been me.
Yeah.
Man, have been me, and I know it's not rare. A lot of people struggle with procrastination, at times, and sometimes everybody around me thinks I'm one of the hardest workers they know. But sometimes I beat myself up
Right.
because I'm like, I could be working harder. You know what I mean? And sometimes that can be like a downward spiral. But I've definitely in my mid-20s struggled a lot with depression. Not something that I struggle with now. But I would say, like, if we talked about my biggest challenges in these past 7 years, it's been one, believing in myself for sure, because I'm reaching new levels in my career every year. And it's different to start over, right? Like when I went from network marketing to doing events with peak potentials, like you're kind of starting over. So you're like, oh, I know what this is like. I know what these stages are like for me to get back to where I was, right? So like, boom. But then once you get to a new stage and to surpass it, I think that's a huge challenge, because you have to take new risks. So deciding what is the smart risk to take, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, right?
Sorry, say that again.
Deciding what are the risks that you want to take now.
Right.
If you're about to go if you've reached a level that you've never experienced before.
Yeah.
If you've been there before, right? If you're building your third business and you're like still trying to get it to the size of the last business, you're just doing what you've already done all over again.
Right.
But when you're trying to reach like new heights in your career, then you can get very anxious around making that decision or that jump, whether it's hiring that individual, letting go of that individual, getting into crucial confrontations and crucial challenges. Your team's bigger, there's more egos, right? There's just more egos, there's more opinions, right? And you're managing many more opinions. You're managing many more emotions of other people. And that's a big one, because you understand that if you want to get to the next level, you're only going to have more of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can't handle that now, right now we have a 40-person team, and I'm working with about 3/4 of them, if not more. But if I want to take this company to the next level, I have to understand that if I can't handle 30, 35 people, then I'm not going to be able to handle 100. Right? So when those challenges come up, it tests your leadership, it tests your patience, it tests your emotional intelligence. And, got to learn how to breathe through certain things. And along the way, you kind of make mistakes, and you have to work your way out of those mistakes as well. But I think a lot of it really comes down to the biggest challenge is, once again, managing a lot of different people from different cultures, different mindsets, especially right now we're a remote team.
Yeah.
So we have people that live in California, people that live in Arizona, people that live in South America, people that live in Miami. It's a lot of different opinions and perspectives, and you have to respect
Absolutely.
a lot of people's perspectives, but sometimes you have to also turn down ideas.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to do that. Like sometimes you don't want to walk on eggshells. Sometimes you don't want to worry about your tonality.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be more direct. Sometimes, you know, you don't have time to take that time to build relationship with someone and make sure that you build that trust first. Because if you're going to work closely with someone, there's going to be tough challenges ahead. You better make sure that you build up that rapport and that trust so that when those tough challenges and conversations come up, there's already enough wiggle room there and enough trust that things aren't going to be taken personally.
Absolutely.
You know, which means you have to dedicate time to people.
You know, with that many people, with that diverse of a team, like you said, remote, different cultures, different states, what does that look like to lead a team like that, right? What does leadership mean to you?
So we definitely grew during the pandemic. So it was definitely a tough decision to say, all right, we're going to stay remote, because I used to like going into an office. I really did, like collaborating with my team and being able to see them and walk into one department's office and go to another person's office and then go to the new guy and sit down with him and be able to train in person, listen in on calls. Remote gives you a whole different challenge because you just can't be there.
Yeah.
All the time. Right?
Zoom, a lot of Zoom, a lot of phone calls.
It's a lot of Zoom. It's a lot of phone calls. So it changes the dynamic a bit. And I think that's been a big challenge for someone as extroverted as me.
Right.
That loves to be around people.
Yeah.
That loves to collaborate with people. You know, like, especially at this size of the team that we have, I always have the vision like, ooh, when we get to this size, we're all going to be like in the conference room with the whiteboard, planning out the year, working together on campaigns, you know, all behind the same computer. Being remote, having people everywhere, it's definitely a new challenge because there's just a lot of communication through things like Slack, through things like Zoom, and it's not as easy like after a work day. I mean, it's pretty much almost not impossible. You can do like Zoom dinners, I guess. You know, but you can't like go out with your team after and hang out.
You can't high five them, hug it out, you know.
Right. If you
clap it up.
If you hire a new person and he did great his first month, right, you may want to take him out to dinner and get to know about him and his life and build a bond. And so building those bonds is definitely more challenging.
Right.
100%. And it definitely takes work. But it has its pros and its cons. You know, if I want to go to Spain tomorrow and work from Spain for the next month, I can do that.
Right.
Which is really cool. That's the really cool thing about it. And I think and we're also able to offer that to our team, right? So my marketing director was literally just touring like Eastern Europe.
Amazing.
For an entire month. And she kicked ass and she delivered on her work for that time. You know what I mean? She got her job done, which was awesome. So being able to give her that, right? Like that opportunity to be able to travel and work, super cool, right? Super, super cool to be able to do that. Hiring people overseas and being able to help them make more money than they ever have before is also super cool. And I've been able to travel to different states and different countries to meet team members as well. One of my creative directors is in Bogota, Carlos, right? So being able to go like meet him like in a different city is also super cool. But it does come with its challenges. We'll see what the future holds. Because we do events, that gives us a huge advantage. Right? So Patrick Bet David, like he just talks about it. He says, you can't build a culture remotely. Right? So we're putting that to the test.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We're putting that to the test, but we're not just remote, right?
Yeah, like, you guys get to meet in person, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's not the entire team, unfortunately. But you know, I'll be in New Jersey with 4 of our team members on the 24th, and then in Fort Lauderdale on the 26th for our mastermind in Fort Lauderdale with another 4 of us, and then in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills in March. We'll be like 15 of us together, right? Yeah. So that gives us the opportunity to bond. Yeah. You know, and that gives us. You
look forward to it too, you know. You're like.
And it gives the opportunity for, you know, my copywriter. He lives in Michigan, in the Upper Peninsula, small towns.
Yeah.
Right. So the first time he came out traveling with us, it was the first time he saw New York City. It was the first time he saw the Pacific Ocean. It was the
Wow.
first time that he saw Windward Walls.
Yeah.
Right. So because even though it's a remote job, we've been able to give him these really cool experiences because of the events that we host. So that gives us that middle ground where we're remote, but at the same time, we do have these opportunities to meet multiple times a year. So at the end of the day, it's a learning experience. We'll see where that takes us and how that goes as we grow and we scale. Right now, we're making the decision on pretty much almost quadrupling our prices because we want to keep the community small and intimate versus like go wide.
Right.
We don't really want to pack stadiums. We don't want to. Most likely, we don't want to pack big convention centers. We'd rather stick to like the hotel ballrooms and like the smaller masterminds,
Make it more intimate,
and like the private dinners, and keep it more intimate and just increase the prices. And then that kind of like creates that filter.
Yeah.
So that will require less of a team.
Mm-hmm.
Not such a big team, because it's true. Like, if we have 100 employees one day, how are we going to do that team call every Monday for the 100 employees?
Yeah.
And how do we now fractionalize and just have certain team leaders manage their teams? So we'll see.
Right.
But it definitely comes with its challenges, but it also comes with its benefits. The flexibility, being able to travel, being able to work if I want in Cartagena one day and go to San Andres another, and then go to Miami for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
When I go home to Connecticut, I get to spend the week with my parents.
Awesome.
So that also has, is priceless as well.
It's amazing, man. Yeah. Talking about traveling, what lessons have you learned, man? Because I feel like when I've traveled, I know one city did it for me, right? That was that one time when I went to Paris. Just I had never been to Europe and stuff like that. It was just like, wow, there's another world out here, man. But you're well traveled, man. Been to so many countries, met so many people, different cultures. Like, tell me, what has that done for you?
It's once again seeing that the world is bigger than like the city you live in or the state you live in is a big difference maker. I think once again, traveling allows you to see what you have in common with people and also your differences, but also like what you have in common with people is really big. It also, I think most people that suffer of like racism or bias or judge other people in other cultures, it's most likely because they haven't traveled.
Right.
Because they haven't gone to their place and sat down and had dinner with them and had like a full discussion with them. So I think that, I was never a racist, right? Or considered myself racist in any way, because I grew up in a very diverse culture and community, in Connecticut, like a lot of different cultures, a lot of different immigrants from all over the world. But at the same time, it gave me a more expansive view of the world, and of different cultures. And man, what can I say about travel other than just like how grateful I am for that opportunity and the opportunity to make a career out of it. But I think it's just really expanded the way that I see the world.
Yeah.
I look at war today and I think it's like the stupidest thing in the world, man. I'm like, wow, we really like kill each other over like things like land and like oil, when it's like we're all on this planet together.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like we're all working on it together. But traveling now the past 15, 16 years doing events, it's also given me an opportunity to see trends, to see how we're becoming a more united world as well, like globalization, and how much more connected we are, because it's crazy how I will run into people in other countries.
Yeah.
Like I went to Greece, I ran into like 3 friends there, like by chance. And we were just at the same restaurant. Went into Singapore and I connected with and I went to go do a presentation at a company in Singapore. And it turned out that the owner of that company used to own and was the original owner of Success Resources, the company that bought Peak Potentials, bought T. Harv Eker's company. So the company that bought T. Harv Eker's company, I met the buyer of the company, Dr. Pat, in Singapore, going to present for his other company.
Yeah,
it's a small world, right?
Yeah.
But the world's getting smaller. So it's really interesting to watch the world get smaller in that sense. running into people in different places. Obviously here, you
Yeah.
probably run into so many people from Miami here in Medellin.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
It's insane. How many people from Miami and New York have moved out here. So it's very wild, man, because there's on top of like me traveling to go host at different events and different conferences and speak at different events. It's also the fact that now I'm kind of an immigrant.
Yeah.
Like I immigrated to this country. I'm a citizen, but at the same time, we're expats of the United States.
Absolutely.
And there's this huge migration and what that means to my identity, right? Because in the United States, to Americans, it's almost like I was always Colombian, right? Like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Connecticut, Connecticut, New York area. And I live in Miami. Oh no, but where are you from?
Yeah.
Like, where's your family from? Like, oh, I'm Colombian. Boom, okay. And then when I'm here and I talk to Colombians, like, oh, where are you from? I'm Colombian. I'm Colombian. I'm a Colombian citizen. I got my cell, I got my Colombian passport. But where are you from?
Yeah.
Like, where are you from? So it's almost like, oh man, it's called third culture. Like there's a term for that. You're never really from anywhere. You're like from this third invisible culture.
How's that been? How's that been moving here? Adapting. Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So in terms of that, it's you definitely fight a lot with your identity. Like I would honestly have to say, like I've definitely had at times like an identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Am I American? Am I Colombian? I would say that I definitely realized that in the United States, all of my closest friends were definitely third culture as well.
Yeah.
They were never like strictly American and never strictly from the country they were from.
Right.
Like kind of in the middle somewhere. And it's like that just naturally happens because there's that commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of my best friends were first generation Americans, for sure, or immigrated to the United States at a very young age. So I've realized like how important it is to connect with people like that. It's like I need to connect with my people. Well, who are my people? It's actually first generation immigrants.
Right.
It's not so much like just strictly Americans or just like strictly full-blooded Colombians.
Mm-hmm.
It's like actually I connect very well with first generation immigrants from either United States or Colombia. So I'm actually part of this group here in Medellin called Colombians from Abroad. So we're all like pretty much like bilingual or trilingual Colombians
like you and I
that immigrated here.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why we connect too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That commonality where we're both Colombian Americans that immigrated out here, and what it's like to live amongst both cultures and be raised in both cultures and really feel like you're a patriot to America and loving America, and at the same time having a profound love for this country and the culture that we're born with and having the language. So there's been a lot of learning in that sense about my identity and what that means and what that means for my future, what that means for the spouse I want one day in my life, what that means for how I'm going to raise my kids.
Yeah, no, I can relate, man. I've had all these same thoughts in my head. So I know what you mean, man. Exactly. 100%.
Yeah. Realizing, to the Colombians, you're the gringo, and to the gringo, you're the Colombian.
Yeah. Man, I definitely know what you mean. And some deep thoughts. So, you've traveled, man, all this, we're wrapping up, man. It's been amazing. A lot of value, into the investment world, into the brilliant minds, building a team, man. Just God, I've loved this. So what's happiness to you? I'd like to know your definition. You've been amongst the elites of the world, traveled, seen everything, built the businesses, been on stage, but like, what does that come down to? Like, what's your definition of happiness?
It's a really good question. It's a profound one.
Yeah, it really
because I think what I'm really learning is that you should seek to obtain like nirvana and bliss and ultimate serenity and constant happiness, but you also have to accept that you're not always going to be happy.
Yeah.
And there's going to be like really tough, challenging times. But at the same time, you need to always aim to be happy and peaceful, which is like a very hard concept for me to wrap my head around right now.
Right.
Because I'm really learning about it now. Like that's what I'm reading about Kabbalah. And sometimes, like I said, like I beat myself up because sometimes mentally I'm not where I feel like I should be. Sometimes it's like, oh, look, I'm living in both countries. You know, I spent 6 months out of the year in the United States, get to travel, get to do these events, get to learn about finances to really prepare myself for like ultimate wealth. Right? Like everything I'm learning right now from these family offices will help me one day build my family office.
Absolutely.
For free. I get paid to do it. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I have both my parents. Why do I sometimes still struggle with, you know, with just not feeling like ultimately happy, or anxiousness or worry or self-doubt? Like, why do I still struggle with that? I should not have to, you know, when I feel like I'm accomplishing all of my goals, right? Which is like very, very interesting. But I think that's the thing. That is life. Like, you will always, as you try to reach the next level, due to our ambition, we will always struggle with certain levels of self-doubt. And, you know, once, you know, I could reach a certain level of wealth and have my finances in order and be providing for my family and my extended family. But now one day I'm going to want to have a family, right? And I'm going to get married one day. And that's going to come with its challenges and its doubts, right? And because every couple I talk to that's been together for 20 plus years, they're like, it's not easy. Like, there's no magic pill. You just got to work through that. You got to work through the temptation. You got to work through the doubt. You got to work through the fights. You got to work through it. And there's going to be tough times. And then you have kids. And you got to deal with that. And you got to deal with those challenges. And the self-doubt with comes with being a parent and believing in yourself as a parent and raising a child, you know, and having a child that has his own opinions and his own views and makes his own decisions, you know? And it's absolutely. Like, happiness is understanding that you're going to feel all the emotions in the human spectrum. Like, just coming to an understanding with that, but understanding that you can't just sit around and feel that way. Yeah. You have to work through it. You have to understand your emotions, you know, and sometimes that takes like really some digging deep. Like, sometimes you're just uncovering some dark shit, man, you know, and like, some things that you have to confront about yourself. And then you break through and you get through the next level. And that's how you get through the next level. Like, really facing the things that are sometimes uncomfortable to face and that are hardest to face. And some people avoid it. They avoid it through drugs. They avoid it through women or like relationships, right? Women could avoid it through men, you know, and they avoid it through getting into situationships and toxic relationships or overworking. Right? Some people avoid it through overworking. Yeah. Right? They escape through overworking. Some people escape through religion, right? And they just like become spiritual monks, which is not healthy as well, because then they avoid everything else because they're like, I'm just going to focus on the spiritual realm and the spiritual world and avoid everything because money's evil, you know? So some people avoid life that way in order to avoid what can be very uncomfortable sometimes, which is like either having no money or managing a bunch of money. Right, which are two very tough things to do. Either way, right? Like, being poor is difficult. Being wealthy is also difficult. Right? They both have their own challenges. Right? If you're managing $100 million of people's money, that could be very stressful. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Crash, lose it all. You know, it's like, so it's understanding that if you want to make it to the next level, you have to get out of your comfort zone. So I guess that's what happiness is to me. Like, if you want to make it out to the next level, you have to understand it's going to be uncomfortable. You're not always going to be happy. And that happiness is breaking through, like breaking through that next level, like having that epiphany, evolving, maturing, you know, building that better habit. Absolutely. You know, becoming that better communicator. Like, it's going to be hard because it means you have to face, to become a better communicator, you have to face all the things about you that are a poor communicator. You know? Like your reactive mind, maybe having a poor tone of voice, having poor body language. You got to face those things, those ugly sides of you, in order to break through that. You know, bad money habits. You have to face it if you have poor money habits. If you have poor health practices, right? You have to face those things to get through to the next level. And I think having those breakthroughs have been my best moments of happiness. Like, learning about it, researching, and then like putting those things into practice and breaking through, those have been like my biggest sources of happiness. But you gotta understand, then there's the next level, and then there's the next level, and that's never gonna stop. Yeah. You know, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day about his grandmother with Alzheimer's, you know, and it's like one day you're going to get old. We're going to get old and we're going to
Yeah.
have new challenges.
Our body
Right.
stops working
Our
the
body
way it's
stops
supposed
working.
to, the way it used to. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And we have to face that.
Yeah.
And it's like, but what's the next level after that? Well, it's how you accept those.
Yeah.
It's your acceptance of getting old. It's your acceptance of your body not working well. That's it. Like learning how to accept it, you know, and channeling your energy into other things. Because and at that age, when you get older, you're dealing with a lot of death. People are dying around you, and all your friends and family. You know, that's the truth.
Yeah, your brain doesn't work the same. Your vision, whatever it may be. I mean,
yeah,
your memory, whatever.
So how do you find happiness in that place?
Yeah.
You know, that's the next level. Because maybe you have all the money in the world, you know, but now you're dealing with another thing. So I think happiness is learning how to accept all those things and how to evolve and how to channel your energy to do something profound. Even if you're old, even if your body's not working that well, you know, are you leaving beautiful lessons for your grandchildren?
Yeah.
You know, are you helping raise your grandchildren and creating good human beings? Grandparents could be a very important part to a child's development. So
Love
maybe
that,
your body's
man.
not working, but are you helping your grandchildren learn valuable lessons that maybe their parents can't teach them yet?
Right.
You know? So
Love that, man.
long question, but you made me really think about it.
Man, that's good, man. That's amazing, man.
Being the first week of this year, it's been something that I've really been meditating on.
No, me too as well. You know, and I feel like happiness also is like when you could, like you said, when you're going through something, but you can be calm about it. Like, hey, man, I'm going through this emotion, and I feel it, and you can embrace it, but still in your mind be calm about it and say, okay, I have to continue.
Yep.
It's not always going to be right, and it's like, the Bible, how it talks about, right? It's not, nothing's ever always stays the same, right? It's ever challenging, it's ever evolving, and just embracing, like you said, man. I love that. So with that being said, for the people watching, everybody listening,
Yep.
what's some last piece of advice, people looking to get in the family office space and the investment space, public speaking? What are some final words that you could leave with people, that can...
Yeah, I'll start with the shameless promotion, familyoffices.com. Go to the website. All the links to like our YouTube channel, our newsletter, it's all there. Like we just give away all the books. It's all there. You can watch interviews with our investors right on our YouTube channel and Family Office Club YouTube channel. There's really no one in the space providing as good technical content as us. You know what I mean? Patrick David, I was just listening to his book today. He's like, you got to also be very emotional in nature and learn how to build your business with emotion. I would say though that our company is not so heavy on the emotional content. It's really a lot about like deal structuring, planning, like planning your trust, how to build your family office.
More technical things.
It's more technical things, a lot, but I don't think there's a lot of content out there.
Yeah.
That's that technical and also has a lot of like exciting stuff and good, deeper interviews with investors that talk about balancing out family relationships and their health and things like that. But all the information, pretty much all the content, we pretty much give away like 95% of our content besides what you're going to see at our live events. So familyoffices.com, super easy URL to remember. And my biggest tip is to study, is to get around them, figure out what circles you want to be around, but also it's very easy to study the emotional stuff. It's exciting, right? Like, how to be more persuasive, right? How to use your body language to convince someone to give you $1 million check, right? Like those things are like cool, like using psychology and life hacks, and biohacking. Right. That stuff's like cool. Like I enjoy studying it, Maybe I don't enjoy studying deal structure so much and numbers and underwriting real estate.
Right.
Not that exciting. Right. So maybe some people do find it exciting, but I know that it's like 10% of people find analytics stuff very exciting. But studying data is one of the very important things. Studying the history of money, of legal tender.
Right.
Studying is, I think, very important because you want to understand the history of it. Like what led us to going from trading and bartering to actually using paper, and the history of that, which is really interesting story actually about. I think like the Chinese were the first ones, but you have to convince people to believe money had value. Now we're stepping into this world of digital currency. So understanding the history, I think, is very important. But there are, if it's not us, if it's not Family Office Club, there's a lot of family office conferences out there. Whoever's viewing this, maybe you knew what a family office was before, maybe you didn't, but I would get out to their events and try to get to family office conferences and events to be able to hear from them. I think that's one of the most important things that you can do. When it comes to public speaking, Toastmasters, like I said, is a
Toastmasters,
big
yeah.
one,
I've been to that. Not a whole bunch, but
Yep, but there's a lot of there's things like open mics, so it just depends on what type of public speaking. I write poetry, and one of the things I did to get out, and I write it just for myself.
yeah.
I literally just like, it's private. I don't share it with anybody. It's like very personal.
Yeah.
But what I did in order to get more comfortable with the stage is I went to an open mic once and I recited my poetry.
Awesome.
One of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life. I put my name on the list, and I was probably like the 15th person on the list. And the anxiety while I waited for my name to be called, and mind you, I had already been speaking on stages for 10 years.
Right.
The anxiety I felt was a whole nother level. I literally kept thinking, I was like, I'm gonna scratch my name off the list. I'm not doing this. And then I did it. And that was a breakthrough. That was huge for me to be so vulnerable. So the thing about it is you got to go out there and do it. There's groups, you go to meetup.com. There's opportunities for you to go up on stage, maybe learn stand-up, learn how to do stand-up comedy. There's a lot of rules and skill involved in that. That's something I want to study. I want to study stand-up comedy and how to write comedic sets.
Yeah.
And go say jokes. I love stand-up comedy. It was very healing for me in my teenage years. So I'd love to practice it and develop that into one of my skills. But I think there's a lot of different types of public speaking out there.
Yeah.
So, ring announcing, for example, like fights, professional fights.
Oh, right.
Are you ready to rumble? Right? That's a type of public speaking. So think about, what type of public speaking do you want to do? There's so many different types, right? You could be the hype man at a concert.
Yeah, so many different things. Yeah.
There's so many different things that you can do, like emceeing and bringing up different speakers, panel moderating. So figuring that out, or just being a keynote speaker, but figure out what you want to teach, figure out what you want to communicate. But I think where most people fail in public speaking, and the reason that I was able to build a career out of public speaking, is because I never really tried to be a public speaker. It was just people asking me to share what I know.
Right.
Like, hey, can you go and talk about the 5 points on how you did this? Kind of like this conversation right here. It was just more, I was invited. It wasn't like me reaching out to different podcast channels or different events and being like, can you have me on your stage? A lot of people do that. A lot of people reach out to podcasts and reach out to events and be like, I want to be on your stage. I want to speak on your stage. I've never asked to speak on stage, ever. No.
It's amazing, man.
Never asked to speak on stage because I wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah.
I've never gotten up on stage for the exposure. It's been nice, right? Getting recognized is nice. It feels good.
Yeah.
To be told you made an impact and people enjoyed what you had to say. But I never did it for that reason. And I feel like what I've seen is that people that do it for that reason, and people that chase the stage and chase the recognition, they don't get it.
Yeah.
They fall flat on their ass.
Doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
They do it for the wrong reasons, or it comes back to bite them in the ass eventually. It does. So if you're going to do it with more the intention of wanting to share what you learn, but do it just to learn. Do it to learn how to be a better communicator.
Yeah.
Would be like my advice. Do it for the sake of you developing your skills.
It's a lifelong skill. Yeah.
Not for the sake of showcasing your skills. Like, I want to learn this so I can show it. Right? The best analogy I can use is music.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to play guitar, if you want to learn how to sing, do it because you want to learn for your own personal self, not because you want to be an artist and be famous. So that's the thing. Don't learn public speaking for the sake because you want to be famous or you want to get recognition. Do it because you want to learn how to be a better communicator, because you want to be more influential with your team, with your family, with your kids, because you want to be more confident, right? That's very different reasons of doing it than, I'm doing it because I want 500 people to see me up on stage and be admired by it and get that admiration.
Love that, man. Love that, man. Andres, it's been a pleasure having you, man. Where could people follow you? Where could people connect with you personally if they want to reach out to you? I'm going to leave all the links for the Family Office Club, also the description, but where could people?
Yeah. 3 major ways. Andres at familyoffices.com. I think it's pretty easy, right? Andres at familyoffices.com. I'm a big email guy. Big email guy. It just allows me more concentrated communication in social media. But if you want to connect with me on social media, I do love Instagram. Andres_Ospina88. And on LinkedIn, Andres Ospina 1018. So
we're going to leave those there. Andres, man, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
I enjoyed this, man. I learned a lot. Hope you guys did too. Catch you guys next time.
Full Circle Conversations.